My name is Claire. I'm 33 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the shadow standing just outside the frame of every family photo. I wasn't the loud one. I wasn't the golden child. I was the one people remembered when someone needed a last minute airport pickup or a stand in for hosting Thanksgiving when no one else wanted to clean. I was useful, never central, supportive, never celebrated. My sister Sophie was the opposite. She was adored. She smiled, laughed at the right moments, wore coordinated outfits, and spoke like a morning show host. Our parents loved how easy she made things look. I, on the other hand, questioned things too often. I wasn't rude, I was just honest, and in our family, honesty was seen as rebellion. I spent years thinking that if I just softened a bit more, smoothed out the edges of my personality, I'd fit better. So I tried. I showed up with handmade gifts to birthdays I wasn't even officially invited to. I volunteered to organize reunions, sent out thank you notes after every holiday, even when no one else did. I thought deep down that effort was currency, that maybe one day someone would see me as essential. But 3 years ago, I stopped trying so hard. It didn't come from anger. It came from exhaustion, from years of being edited out of the narrative, from seeing a family group photo tagged online and realizing I'd never even been told it was happening. Still, despite everything, there was one person I stayed close with: my cousin Noah. He was 6 years younger, but had the empathy and insight of someone who'd been watching everything with clear eyes. We'd message sometimes late at night, usually after family events, where he noticed how I was talked over or left out. "I see it too," he once said. "You're not imagining it." Last fall, Noah called me. "Did you get the invite for the family reunion?" he asked. I hadn't. I laughed a little, trying to make it sound like I didn't care. "Guess I didn't make the cut this year." He paused. "Claire, they made a group chat. You're not in it." "Of course not." He sounded frustrated. "This isn't okay." "It never was," I replied. The family had decided to host the reunion at a lakeside resort 2 hours from where I lived. Every relative I could think of was going. The event was fully catered: custom shirts, a professional photographer, even a slideshow about the family legacy. But not a word to me. Noah called again the week before. "Come anyway," he said. "I'll save you a seat. You deserve to be there." I almost said no. I deleted every message thread from Sophie months ago. I hadn't spoken to my dad since he forgot my birthday the year prior. I had no interest in being reminded of the hierarchy that had always existed. But there was something about Noah's voice. He sounded tired too, tired of pretending it wasn't happening. So on the morning of the reunion, I got in my car, printed out a card with the words, "For your consideration," and tucked it into my purse. I wasn't sure if I would give it to anyone, but something about having it with me made me feel grounded. The drive was quiet. I rehearsed different scenarios in my head. Maybe I'd be ignored. Maybe I'd get the fake smile and the "oh, you made it." Maybe someone would pull me aside and say, "This is a private event," like I was a stranger who wandered in from the street. When I arrived, the lot was full. Cars I recognized lined the gravel. Laughter floated down from the banquet hall, mixed with the sounds of silverware clinking against china, and someone giving a toast. I paused outside the double doors. I could see the balloons, the banners, the giant poster of our great-grandparents. And I could see my father front and center raising a glass beside Sophie, both beaming. I opened the door just a crack. Before I could step inside, someone blocked my path. It was my Aunt Marlene. She didn't look surprised to see me. "Claire," she said as if my name were a question. "I came for the reunion," I said simply. She gave me a thin smile. Only confirmed guests were on the list. "I'm family." She didn't budge. "I know, but your name wasn't included." I looked past her. Sophie's boyfriend, whom I'd met maybe once, was sitting in what used to be my place at the table. My dad handed him a beer and said something that made Sophie laugh. I looked back at my aunt. Understood. I didn't argue. I just turned around, walked back to my car, and drove away. But I didn't go home. I parked at a rest stop 20 minutes away, opened my bag, and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for months. Then I mailed it. What came next would shake everything they thought they had buried. The letter wasn't angry. It wasn't a rant or an accusation. There was no capitalized rage, no guilt-tripping paragraphs, no dramatic "you ruined me" message. I wasn't writing for revenge. I was writing for truth. I'd started drafting it 5 months earlier. Not out of spite, but because I finally admitted to myself that they were never going to acknowledge what they did to me. Not directly, not publicly, maybe not even privately. And I needed something anything to stop feeling like I was going crazy. It was a simple envelope, cream-colored thick stock addressed by hand. Inside, there was a printed letter and a USB drive. The letter was 2 pages long, structured like a timeline. No emotion, just dates, quotes, photos, messages. The USB contained evidence, a folder of screenshots my father telling my sister over text that I made things harder for everyone with her constant critiques. A group chat I'd accidentally been left in once, where someone said, "Let's keep it peaceful this year. Claire's not coming, right?" And my mother replied, "I doubt she even remembers we exist, unless she needs something." There were photos too. Christmas dinners with me, cropped out. A birthday card I'd handmade for my mom that was posted with the caption, "From Sophie, so thoughtful." A voice note where my Aunt Marlene described me as emotionally exhausting. It wasn't meant to destroy anyone. It was meant to reveal them. I sent that package to 10 people. Not to everyone. Just the ones who mattered or used to. The ones who had sat on the sidelines while I was quietly erased. The ones who told me they didn't want to get involved. The ones who said, "I'm sure she didn't mean it," while watching me get blamed again and again. I didn't expect much. But 26 minutes after I mailed the letter, while sitting in my car with the engine off my phone buzzed. It was Noah. "Did you do it?" he asked. "Yes." Good. He didn't ask what was inside. He didn't have to. He'd seen some of it himself. He'd heard it at parties and car rides during awkward silences at dinners where people acted like I wasn't sitting 3 feet away. "I'm with you," he said, and I believed him. That night I went home. I didn't cry. I didn't check my phone obsessively. I cooked dinner, listened to a podcast, and let the quiet wrap around me like a weighted blanket. It was the first peace I'd felt in weeks. But the next morning the fallout began. It started small. A message from Aunt Janine, the one who always called herself the peacemaker, but never once stood up for me. Her message read, "Claire, I just got your letter. I had no idea. I'm so sorry." Then a text from my cousin's wife. I showed this to Ben. "He feels awful. So do I." Then a voicemail from Uncle Greg. Shaky voice. "I can't believe what I read. I don't know what to say. You were always so quiet. I didn't realize you were hurting like that." But the most surprising came that afternoon from my dad. He texted, just one sentence, "We need to talk." I didn't respond. 3 days later, I got a message from Sophie. It was a photo of the family group chat imploding, dozens of unread messages, some yelling in all caps, some quiet shocked, some people leaving the chat altogether. Someone asked if it was fake. Someone else confirmed it wasn't. Then silence. I didn't hear from Sophie directly, but I could imagine how it was going. She'd probably try to spin it, that I was overreacting, that families fight, that I should have come to her personally even though I had dozens of times only to be brushed off or gaslit. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was that someone else stepped up. My Aunt Rachel, my mom's younger sister. The one who had always kept a polite distance, posted on her private Facebook page a photo of me at her baby shower. I was 15. I had a shy smile and was holding a box of handmade decorations I'd spent a week crafting. Her caption read, "Some of us saw it, most of us stayed quiet. But Claire's been part of this family longer than the lies. And I'm sorry it took this long to say it." The post blew up. Dozens of people shared it, left comments. I always wondered why she wasn't around anymore. Claire helped me move apartments when no one else would. She brought soup when my mom had surgery. I didn't even ask. She just showed up. It was like pulling a thread from a tightly wound sweater. Once it started unraveling, there was no stopping it. I thought about all the holidays I had shown up to with pies, gifts wrapped, candles, books I thought they'd love. I thought about the time I offered to drive Aunt Marlene to her chemo appointment, and she said, "That's nice of you, but don't you have something better to do?" I thought about the time I brought flowers to my mom's birthday, and she handed them to Sophie saying, You always bring the most thoughtful gifts. I thought about all the times I sat quietly at dinners listening to jokes about people who couldn't take a hint. I had been taking hints my entire life, but now they were the ones getting the message. 1 week after the reunion, I received a certified letter from my father. It was short, 2 paragraphs. He said he regretted not stepping in, that he believed I deserved better, and that he was reevaluating some things. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask to meet. He didn't mention the letter. Just those vague words. It wasn't enough. But it was something. And still, it was Noah who grounded me. I think they're more afraid of you than you realize, he said over the phone. Because you didn't scream. You didn't throw a fit. You just showed them the mirror. I laughed softly. Mirrors are dangerous when people haven't seen themselves in a while. He chuckled. So what now? I looked out the window at the morning sun climbing over the buildings across the street. Now I rebuild. But not for them. For me. The next Sunday, I got coffee with my Aunt Rachel. We sat by the window in a quiet cafe, sipping lattes, watching rain tap against the glass. She looked at me with eyes that were softer than I remembered. You know, she said slowly, there's a part of me that's ashamed. I saw what they were doing. I saw how they treated you. But I always told myself it wasn't my place. It's okay, I said gently. No, she shook her head. It's not. But I want to do better now. I smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because finally, someone wasn't pretending anymore. And that was the beginning of something real. A week after the reunion, the house of cards began to sway. And it started with a phone call I never expected. Claire. It was Sophie. I hadn't heard her voice in almost 8 months. Not since our last conversation where I asked her calmly why she never once stood up for me. And she replied, "It's not my job to manage everyone's feelings." Now her voice was smaller. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me," she said, "but I think you need to know. Dad's furious. With everyone." I stayed quiet. "He says you blindsided the family, that you've created a crisis." I let out a small breath through my nose. Truth is only a crisis if you've been lying. She flinched. I could hear it in the pause. There's talk about a family meeting. Damage control, statements to clarify. Clarify, I repeated. She didn't answer. Instead, she said something else. Did you know Mom's been getting calls from people she hasn't heard from in years? Like her old friend from church and cousin Brenda from Florida. They're all asking why your name was never mentioned in the family history section of that stupid photo book we handed out. I smiled to myself. I hadn't seen that photo book, but I'd heard about it. A glossy, expensive-looking binder printed for the reunion. Stories about everyone in the family, achievements, photos, quotes. I hadn't even been footnoted. That omission hadn't surprised me. What surprised me was that someone noticed, and now the omissions were glaring. I didn't say much to Sophie. She kept circling, trying to bait some response. At one point, she even said, sure, I get why you were upset, but it's public. You made it messy, and all I could think was no. They made it messy. I just stopped cleaning it up for them. We ended the call in silence. She didn't say sorry. I didn't ask for it. I'd stopped expecting apologies that only came after consequences. What came next was the unraveling. Quiet, deliberate, like tiny avalanches triggered by long-held tension. People began leaving the family chat, one by one. My cousin Julia posted on Instagram a picture of her and I from 8 years ago with the caption, "Wish I hadn't waited so long to reach back out. I see you now." Then Uncle Frank, one of the oldest in the family, called me. I didn't realize what they were doing to you, he said, voice cracking. I thought you were just distant. I didn't know you were pushed away. His words hung there. And then, you know, Claire, your mom's furious. She says you've ruined the family's name. I chuckled. If a name gets ruined by the truth, it was never strong to begin with. He didn't disagree, but it was the financial unraveling that triggered the real shockwaves. And that was never my plan. It was just overdue. See, I had always been the dependable one, the one people called in quiet panic. Ava's car broke down. I paid for the repair. My mom had overdue rent once. I wired the money. Uncle Ron needed help with insurance for his wife's surgery. I sent a check. None of them ever offered to pay it back. And I never asked. I thought stupidly that love was transactional, that maybe if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. But after the reunion, I closed the tap. I stopped every recurring transfer, froze the auto payments I had quietly set up, and in a few cases sent polite letters legal in tone, not angry requesting repayment for what had been understood as temporary help. I wasn't chasing money, I was drawing boundaries, and apparently nothing enraged them more. My mother called, no greeting. Just, "So now you're taking our house down over a few dollars." I didn't engage. I just said, "You called it a family, but I was only welcome when I paid admission." She hung up. The biggest twist, though, came not from my immediate family, but from a woman named Lillian. She was a distant cousin, someone I barely remembered from a wedding in 2006. She messaged me on Facebook. "Claire, I'm sorry this is random. I just wanted to thank you. After everything you shared, I finally found the courage to confront my own family about how they treated me growing up." We ended up talking for over an hour. She told me how she was always the fat cousin, always picked last, mocked behind her back, excluded from weddings, and blamed for tension. And reading my story, she realized it wasn't just me. It was never just me. That phrase echoed in my head for days. It was never just me. One of the most surreal moments came at the grocery store. I ran into a former friend of my mom's. She looked at me, blinked, then smiled nervously. "I saw the post your Aunt Rachel made," she said. And then I saw the screenshot of that group chat message. "I'm sorry, Claire. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. You were always kind to me. I just believed what I was told." It was strange being seen after so long in the shadows, and even stranger how the silence began to shift in my favor. No one likes to be lied to. And when the curtain was pulled back, people realized the performance they'd been clapping for was cruel, not charming. But the part that undid me, it was a voicemail from my father. "Claire," he said, voice thick, slow. I read it. The letter. I didn't know you kept all of it. The messages, the screenshots, the voice memos. He paused. "I remember that conversation with Sophie. I said you were difficult. I thought I was protecting the peace, but maybe I was just avoiding the truth." Another pause. "I'm sorry for staying quiet, for watching them cut you out. I didn't know how to stop it." I replayed it 3 times, because while it wasn't enough to fix the damage, it was the first time in years he admitted it was real. I didn't call him back right away. I didn't know if I could handle another half apology or defensiveness. But the voicemail stayed saved on my phone, like proof that I hadn't been imagining the silence. 3 weeks after the reunion, I hosted my own dinner. It wasn't a big event, just 10 people. No dress code, no slideshow, no banner that said family means everything. Just warmth, laughter, realness. Noah brought dessert. Aunt Rachel brought wine. My neighbor Lena came with her homemade lasagna. And we sat around my small kitchen table, eating off mismatched plates, telling stories without pretending we were perfect. We took a group photo, and this time I wasn't the one cropped out. The most unexpected thing came on New Year's Eve. A message request on Instagram from Sophie's boyfriend, the one who took my seat at the reunion table. He wrote, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was stepping on someone's place. If I'd known, I wouldn't have accepted the invite. I know this doesn't mean much, but for what it's worth, you deserved better." I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either, because it reminded me of something I kept forgetting: I wasn't invisible. They just pretended not to see me. And in the aftermath, as the family tried to rebuild their image, they made more mistakes. My mom posted long, cryptic status updates about betrayal and those who twist the truth for attention. But this time, people didn't clap. They questioned her. They shared their own stories. One by one, her narrative crumbled. Not because I fought harder, but because she'd finally run out of places to hide. By the time February rolled in, the family group chat was a ghost town. Only Sophie, my mom, and a few loyal defenders still posted in it. Most others had splintered off. Noah created a new chat. Claire's Table, he called it. A space where people were allowed to show up as they were. No auditions, no edits, just real people with real voices. And me, I started writing again. The kind of writing that didn't need anyone's approval. I stopped waiting for someone to invite me to a table I'd been building alone for years. Because finally I saw it. I was the table. And now only those who brought honesty got a seat. People often ask what happens after the explosion. After the message is sent, after the voices are raised, after the dust settles, and there's no longer an audience for the performance. The answer isn't loud. It's quiet. Quiet in a way that feels strange at first, like walking into your house after a storm expecting to find windows shattered only to realize what's broken wasn't the walls. It was the silence you kept inside for too long. For me, life after the fallout wasn't about revenge. It was about space, about breathing again without bracing for impact, about waking up and not immediately checking my phone worried about a snide comment or a message that made me feel like I had to defend my own existence. It was about peace, the kind of peace I didn't even know I was allowed to ask for. I moved into a smaller apartment, just one bedroom, one bathroom, and a kitchen that smelled like fresh basil in the mornings. I filled it with color, not expensive things, just things that made me smile. A worn-out record player, a framed note from Noah that simply read, "You weren't wrong," a candle that smelled like pine trees and rain, the kind of environment that didn't require me to shrink myself. I got a plant, a fern, actually. I named her Iris. Iris thrived in the corner of my kitchen, despite my very amateur plant skills. She was alive, growing, reaching toward the window for sun, and in some strange way I realized I was doing the same. Noah became my anchor in those first few months. Not in a codependent way, but in that rare grounding way that only people who have seen you fall and never looked away can be. We'd meet on Sundays. Coffee, pastries, walks through the park. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we just sat in silence. And during one of those walks, he turned to me and said, "I'm proud of you." It caught me off guard. Why, I asked. Because you didn't just survive them, you changed the script. I hadn't thought of it that way. I hadn't set out to change anything. I just wanted to stop pretending. But I realized that was the change. Choosing truth over harmony. Choosing boundaries over forced connection. Choosing to stay out of spaces that required me to be smaller to be loved. I still get messages now and then, from extended relatives, from old family friends. Some are apologies, some are questions. Some are quiet little acknowledgments, like digital olive branches. I don't respond to all of them. I don't feel like I owe everyone my peace just because they finally notice the noise. But I do save some. Not out of nostalgia, but as reminders. That even in the most carefully curated lies, people eventually recognize authenticity. It just takes time. And sometimes a little fire. Christmas came again. The anniversary of the message. The table. The walk away. I didn't think I'd feel much, but that morning I woke up with a lump in my throat. I remembered the years I spent forcing a smile at dinners where my name was misspelled on the place card, if I got one at all. I remembered the ache of watching my sister's every accomplishment praised while mine were met with silence, or worse, backhanded compliments. "You've always been so independent, Claire. You never really needed anyone, right?" I remembered how many holidays I went home feeling less like a daughter and more like a tolerated guest. But this time I didn't feel the ache. I felt clarity. That kind of clarity that comes when you finally accept what someone can't give you and stop asking them to. That evening, I hosted a dinner, not a big one. Just Maya, Noah, Aunt Rachel, and a few people from my chosen circle. We lit candles, played music, ate too much garlic bread. At one point, Maya raised her glass and said, "To Claire, for showing us that walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing peace." I didn't cry. I just nodded, because I finally believed it too. What I've learned is this: you don't always get justice from the people who hurt you. Sometimes the justice is in becoming someone they no longer have power over. You don't always get closure from the conversation you dream of having. Sometimes closure is the breath you take when you stop rehearsing your defense, and you don't always get love from the people who should have known how to give it. But you can find it in yourself, in new people, in moments that feel nothing like the performance you once had to play. My mother never reached out again after Christmas. I think in her mind I made a choice to destroy the family. But she's wrong. I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to keep pretending. And when the illusion cracked, it wasn't because of me, it was because they built a house on silence. And I finally knocked. These days I live simply. I write, I cook, I walk a lot. I keep my circle small, not out of fear, but because now I know the value of being seen fully. And for anyone reading this wondering if the pain is worth the truth, I'll say this. It is, even when it hurts, even when it's messy, even when it means sitting alone for a while before you build your own table. It's worth it. Because one day you'll look in the mirror and finally see yourself again. Not as a burden, not as a ghost, not as someone who had to earn their seat, but as the person who was always enough, even when they didn't see it. Especially then. If you're still here listening to this, maybe a part of this story felt familiar. Maybe you've sat at that table, the one where you brought love, effort, kindness, and left hungry anyway. Maybe you've been told, in 100 small ways, that your worth depended on how much you gave, how much you tolerated, how much you kept quiet. Maybe you've kept the peace so long, you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like. And if that's the case, I just want to tell you something simple. You are not alone. You are not unlovable. You are not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. You're not dramatic. You're not the problem for wanting to be respected. You're just someone who has finally stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. And that is nothing to be ashamed of. For years, I told myself family was forever. That blood was thicker than betrayal, that if I just worked harder, smiled longer, stayed quieter, they'd love me the way I loved them. But some people only know how to love themselves in mirrors. And if you stop reflecting what they want to see, they stop looking at you at all. So I stopped being their mirror. I started being my own person. It was terrifying, but it was also the most honest I'd ever felt. I want you to think about something. Think about the version of you who keeps showing up to tables where you're not fed. Think about how exhausted they must be. Now imagine them walking away not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. Imagine them building a table of their own, inviting only those who bring care, compassion, and truth. Imagine the peace, the quiet that isn't empty, but earned. That version of you exists. They're waiting. All you have to do is walk toward them. And if someone tells you you're destroying the family, let them sit with that. Because what they're really saying is, you're disrupting the comfort I built on your silence. You're not destroying anything. You're choosing truth. You're choosing peace. You're choosing yourself, and that is not selfish. That is survival. To the women listening who've spent their lives making holidays beautiful for others while being left out of the photos. To the men who were told emotions are weakness and speaking up is betrayal. To the daughters and sons and cousins and caregivers who were made to believe that love means loyalty, even in the face of cruelty. You deserve better. And sometimes better doesn't come from them. It comes from you. From saying, this ends here. This stops with me. I get to begin again. So this year, if the invitations don't come, if the door is closed, if your seat is given away to someone who never earned it, let it go. Let them go. You are not the empty chair. You are not the missed call. You are not the one who failed to belong. You were just in the wrong room waiting for the right story to begin. And when you're ready, when the pain quiets down enough to breathe again, start writing that new story. One with your name on every page. One where the love is real. Where the seat is always yours. Where you don't have to perform to be welcomed. Where the family you build may be smaller but finally feels like home.